Hello, this is Timothy with Growling Pigeon Studio, and today I would like to talk about decomposition, a feature in C# that is super awesome, super cool, and I just don't see utilized as much as it could be. So, for purposes of this video, we'll be talking about tuples, and specifically it's the value tuple, which is on the stack, not the old tuple that is a struct, or sorry, that is a class and that is on the managed heap. So here we have an example of decomposition. This is a decomposed tuple. You'll see I'm getting tuple, and if I look at that, it shows float x, float y, and float z as a decomposition of a tuple. I can also just say, hey, I want a variable. So, for example, var t, is my tuple, and if I examine this, this is still a tuple. So let's undo that, and I want to show that this variable z, x and y here are not being used because we're using the vector 2 to get our x and y, but z here is still assigned to, and if we run this, we'll get a 3 in that place, as you can see. So I'm passing in a 5 and a 6 to our vector 2, and we expect 5 and 6 because we're doing vector 2x and vector 2y, and then the z, of course, is a 3. Very cool. So let's take a look at vector 2 really quickly, because we have our constructor here, and we can use decomposition. How do we do that? Well, instead of this dot x equals x and this dot y equals y, we can do basically the same thing that that we see here, and assign to local parameters or to local fields from our parameters. So let's just put that in, and so you see that this is still our same assignments, but we're just using decomposition and tuples to do it. And in fact, we can turn this into a lambda instead of doing a method body. So if I do that, then look at that. Beautiful. It's a single line constructor, and I think it's nice and readable. At least it is to me because I wrote it. Maybe you'll disagree. But if we run this, it will have the same results. It works exactly the same as if we had the old constructor. So 5, 6, and 3, as we expected. Very good. So let's take a look at vector 3 and this get tuple. Is there a better way to do this? Well, it turns out that there is. Instead of saying, hey, I want to get tuple explicitly, I can say public void decompose, make sure I spell it right, decompose, and anything that has this method will be decomposable. So we need every parameter must be an out. So out float x, out float y, and out float z. All right. And we need to assign all of these. So x equals this dot x. And then you might be thinking, well, this is silly, Timothy. Why do you need to, write every line this dot y, for example? Can't you do decomposition here as well? Yes, I can. So I can simply say x, y, and z are going to be equal to, and let's just copy this here so that I don't fat finger anything and embarrass myself in front of a YouTube audience. So copy, and let's paste that there. Beautiful. So I can do that, and I can even make this a lambda expression as well. But what's important here is that it's a public void decompose, and all of our parameters are out parameters. So that's what's important. And now I can get rid of get tuple. We don't need that anymore. If I go back to the program, it'll say, hey, you can't do this. Get tuple doesn't exist anymore, and indeed it doesn't. If we get rid of that, oh, sorry, it's not decompose, it's deconstruct. I am so sorry. It is important that you spell it right, that I spell it right. So deconstruct. All right. And you can see that it deconstructs perfectly. I've been calling it decompose this whole time. Oh, this is so embarrassing. I'll still upload it. You get the idea. So deconstruct is what we're doing. Anyway, if we run this, we should get the exact same results. Look at that. No errors. 5, 6, and 3. Very cool. Well, let's say that I actually want an x and y position to be in a vector 2. So I actually want a vector 2. Yeah, vector 2. And we'll call this vec2, which will, of course, be a collision with this guy. So we'll comment him out. And we still expect vector 2 to have our x and y. And now it will be 1 and 2 is what we would expect. And our z to be still equal to 3. So how do we get this to happen? Can we make it happen? And the answer is yes. In fact, I can copy this whole thing. Let's do that. And what I'll do is say, let's start over here on the right, because why not? So new vector 2. And this will take our this dot x and this dot y. Continuing forward to the left, this will be vec2. And we're going to do an out vector 2. We'll call it vec2. All right, so I have 2 deconstruct methods. Will that work? Well, yes, it will. As long as I have a different number of parameters in each deconstruct method, it will work. So if I put in a third parameter, no matter what the parameter was, then the overload will not work, and it'll get confused and scream at me and so on. But yeah, this will decompose properly that way, or deconstruct properly that way. I don't know why I keep going to decompose, but it's deconstruct. Okay, so if we run this, it should be 1, 2, and 3. And look at that, 1, 2, and 3. Beautiful. Well, maybe I want to decompose our vector 2. Deconstruct our vector 2. So I want float x and float y equals our vec2. And this is really quite nice, so I can further, deconstruct it. Let's just take this guy, Control C, and copy it here. And we don't need the z, and we don't need the z. Beautiful. If we look at our program, we can just do x here and y here. And I hope you can see how this is reducing the amount of code written in our main program. Of course, you do need to do some definitions in your classes and structs. So this can be used in classes, not just structs. You do need to do a little bit of definition in there, but once you have it, it makes our code a little bit easier to write, a little bit easier to read, I think. And if we run this, we still get the 1, 2, 3. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Anyways, yeah, this is just a short little discussion on deconstruction. Got to make sure I get it right. And you know, I really do think it can be used a lot more often in a lot more ways. Anyway, this has been Timothy with Growling Pigeon Studio talking about deconstruction, and been calling it decomposition this whole time. You have fun. Bye.